what everybody's talking about. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Debbie Georgiani along with Jerry Usher. And you're fired. No, I'm just kidding. You're not fired.
Who, me?
That's the title of our show today. It was hilarious when I saw the title of it, Jerry, and it says, "You're fired." I got that uneasy feeling, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we want to hear from those of you today who have had that uncomfortable experience of either being fired from a job, let go, or maybe you had to do that dirty deed to somebody. Maybe it just wasn't working out for an employee, or maybe you were managing some people. And I know, Debbie, for me, it's just really a very uncomfortable thing. I've had people work for me before, and I just, it's not a place I like to go. And of course, I'm sure I've been fired probably more than once in my life. So the question is, how do we learn from these experiences? What can God teach us through them? How can we grow? How can we even grow spiritually by maybe being told that we're no longer a good fit for a particular job?
Right. Or you can be in my situation, a very young manager at a hotel resort in Arizona, and my boss told me to keep an eye on this one server that we had that we believed was drinking on the job. And he said to me, "Deb, this is your project. You have to catch him in the act and then fire him on the spot." And
Oh, great.
I was 8 months pregnant at the time, Jerry, young. And I said to my boss, John, "John, you got to be kidding me. You can't ask me to do this." And he said, "Yep, this is your project." And sure enough, on a Saturday night, we caught him drinking in the side station, in the wait station. And I walked right up to him. I remember it vividly. And I looked right at him and I said, "You're fired." And he said, "Why?" I said, "You're fired." And he said, "Why?" And I reached up and I grabbed the cup of alcohol that he had sitting on the counter, and I smelled it. I didn't drink it because I was pregnant. And I smelled it, and I looked at him and I said, "This is why." I said, "So you're going to lie to me, or you're going to tell me the truth?" He goes, "I was drinking on the job." I said, "Again, you're fired." And I was shaking the whole time I was doing it. So yeah, it's a tough position to be in, Jerry, and to be the one having to tell somebody they're fired or let go, or to be the one on the receiving end. I have to say I'm very grateful to God. I've never been asked to leave a job, or I've never been fired. Thank God. I've stayed on jobs a long time, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I tell you, it's a very uncomfortable experience. But you're right, the way you do it, and the way you respond to it, I think is very important, and it's a reflection of how we are as Catholic Christians. So today, the title of the show is "You're Fired." Have you been on the receiving end, or have you been the one who has to let somebody go? But we want to hear from you. How did you respond? How did you react? 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, there are many ways that we can connect this to our faith lives, our spiritual lives, and sometimes it's just God kind of moving us on from a situation where He doesn't want us. Other times there may be lessons that we have to learn, Debbie. There are maturity issues. I think back early in my career, my working career, radio, and there were times when jobs, I maybe didn't get fired, but I got transferred to a different shift that I didn't like or something.
Right.
And you just think, that's just not fair. I'm better than that, and I'm good enough for this other shift or this position. But then we have to just kind of dwell with the reality of it for a while. And I don't know how I handled it back then. It'd be very different now. But I think the only time that I've really actually lost a job was when a company relocated, and I just simply didn't want to move with them. But still, these are growth opportunities. And so, again, dear friends, if you have had this experience, or again, how did you approach? See, especially Debbie, here's the thing: if we ever have that uncomfortable situation of having to let someone go, like you did, how do we respect the person's dignity at the same time that we have to do that very difficult task?
No, Jerry, you make a very good point too. I think if you're on the receiving end of being let go, you do have to take a moment and kind of do an inventory on yourself to say, what kind of accountability am I going to own in this? And the reason why I say that is because the young man, after I got done firing him, and he was a bit embarrassed in front of his coworkers, but there was no other way around it. You couldn't. It had to be done where there was witnesses, because he was drinking on the job, and the other servers. Back in the day, you had to have that kind of atmosphere. So anyway, I took him into the office and we talked about it. And I said, why drinking on the job? Why not wait till afterwards if you want to go out and have a drink? Why do it on the job when you know it's against the rules, plus you're stealing from the company? And he said he was bored. He was bored with his job. And I said, okay, this is a great example. Then you need to get a job that stimulates you. You need to go on and do something that you're passionate about. And we had a really wonderful conversation. We actually embraced. We hugged each other when he left, and he realized it. He took accountability. And he actually came back to the hotel several times, and I actually bought him lunch a few times. And it was really a nice encounter because he like you said, Jerry, he needed that maybe that little push to kind of mature, to grow up, and to realize, take accountability, move on, and grow from this. And it ended up being somewhat of a positive experience. And it also was a positive experience for the rest of the coworkers because we all realized, hey, you know what? You can't steal from the company. You can't break the rules. You're eventually going to get caught. And so there was a learning lesson all the way around. I didn't learn too much, Jerry. I got to be honest with you. I was still shaking. They didn't know I was shaking, but I was shaking because here I was 8 months pregnant with this gigantic belly. And I was nervous, because sometimes people don't react well when they're being let go. And so I was praying to God the whole time, Lord, please protect me and my little boy. And so it's an interesting dynamic. But we want to hear from you, dear listeners. 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, and maybe you lost a job that it wasn't your fault. Maybe you were a fantastic employee and there was just downsizing, or maybe they wanted to hire someone younger. I mean, we get a little ways along in our careers sometimes, and we become at risk for maybe being terminated because our salary is a little bit higher, and a company can bring somebody in and pay them a little bit less and still get perhaps the same productivity out of that. So feel free to join us here on the program, 1-800-585-9396. You can also send us a text. You can text the letters EWTN to 55000. Maybe get that little data right there. It depends on your phone plan, of course. You can email us, take2@EWTN.com, or comment on YouTube or EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook page. Jerry Usher with Debbie Georgianni talking about if you've ever lost a job, been fired, or had to let somebody else go. Share your take with the world today.
Post your intentions on the prayer wall on Jerry and Debbie's website. To get there, just click on the bright yellow J&D logo at take2show.com. Jerry and Debbie personally reply to every prayer intention that's posted. Others will also offer you their prayer support. When there's something important you want prayers for, post it on the prayer wall on Jerry and Debbie's site. Visit take2show.com, click on the J&D logo today.
EWTN Radio Classics is our 24/7 teaching and devotionals channel, straight from the EWTN archives. Go classic with EWTN Radio Classics, online at EWTNradio.net. Now available on the EWTN app.
Hi, I'm Doug Keck, and welcome to an EWTN Bookmark Brief. I just finished interviewing Dr. Peter Williamson about his book on Revelation. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Sure. Well, there's no book of the Bible that more needs interpretation, commentary than the book of Revelation. And so I spent about 5 years studying that book, and it was after having taught it a few times and beginning to feel I was getting some insight into it, and reading about it and writing, and I produced a commentary which I think will help any serious reader of the book of Revelation. I try to interact with some of the other interpretations that are out there. I think it's something that will be of service to many, especially preachers and teachers of the Word, or Bible study leaders, or Catholic Bible nerds. They really want to go deep.
Very good. Thank you so much. It's Dr. Peter Williamson. His book is on Revelation. Look for the whole interview airing soon on EWTN. And this has been an EWTN Bookmark Brief, and I'm Doug Keck.
Hello, this is Father John Paul Mary.
This is Debbie Georgianni, co-host of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
My friends, this is Bishop Kevin Vann of the Diocese of Orange. I want to thank you very much for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Thanks for being with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. We're talking today about employment circumstances and when they change due to being let go. Have you ever been called into the boss's office and been given that very uncomfortable message that your job was being terminated for whatever reason? How did you react? How did you respond to that? How did you move forward? And what did you learn? Or maybe you were the boss, the owner of the company, or like Debbie, she was put in a position by her boss. She was the manager, and she was told to do the deed to let somebody go. And how was that for you? I'm not good with stuff like that. I don't know. I'd love to hear from some other people who may have had to do that before. How did you approach that? 1-800-585-9396.
There's two ways to weigh in on this conversation. You can call us, 1-800-585-9396, or you can text us. You text the letters EWTN to 55000. You wait for a response, and then you text your first name, your question or comment, and we'll put it into the discussion. But we want to hear from you. Any way you want to do it, we'd love to hear from you. You can even email us at take2, the number 2, at EWTN.com. But we may not get to that part of it during the show. It might be after the show, but we'll try to respond to you as well. Like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, Jerry, I am very fortunate that I was never on the receiving end, probably because I used to pray a lot. I was like, Lord, please. I could never imagine having that pink slip and just having to pack up and leave and turn in your keys, and all that feeling that those, I don't know if I could handle it. So I used to pray a lot. Lord, please just don't let that happen to me. I don't know. Maybe some of you have done the same thing as well. So let's first go to TJ, listening to EWTN radio in Fort Dodge, Iowa, on Siouxland Catholic Radio. Hi, TJ. Welcome to Take Two.
Fortunately, I got to tell you, I was on the receiving end. I was probably 14 years old, and bean walking was the job. And we had a grumpy foreman, and I was a little runt. And my mom would send me out to do jobs that I just had no business doing. I wasn't ready for them. I was a city boy. And you would go to work in a cattle truck in the back, and then go out there and pull weeds that had roots on them that were taller than you were. And so I wasn't doing a very good job. And this grumpy foreman said, you're fired, back to the truck. And then he fired some other kid too. So we went back to the truck, and I'm thinking, I'm just stuck out here on this farm all day, and not get paid or anything. And then I suppose an hour went by, and this farmer that was owned the land, he saw us in the truck, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "We got fired. Red fired us." And so he said, "Come on, get out there." And he sent us back out in the field. And so I went back out there knowing that Red was going to be angry. And he said, "I thought I fired you too." We said, "The farmer told us to come back out here." And so he accepted that, and we continued working. But those jobs that were a little too rough for me as a child, they helped me in later years to dig in and tough it out.
Yeah. I was going to ask TJ. You kind of answered the question because you said you got sent right back out there. But I was going to ask you, at the age of 14, sometimes we sort of overreact to things. And I was wondering, did you think maybe your professional life was over at that point or something?
No, I wasn't your typical kid. I didn't worry about things too much. My basic problem was getting back into town so I could goof around, probably.
Right.
Well, here's the thing, TJ. You said that those experiences that you had when you were 14, it helped you and shaped you for later life. I think that's awesome. But the other thing, too, is you also said that when you were fired, I think you said you were fired along with a friend at the same time?
Yeah, I didn't know the fella, but we shared the back of that truck together. Okay.
So that kind of made it a little easier when there's two of you getting fired as opposed to just one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of like misery loves company, right, TJ?
Right.
Well,
I was embarrassed.
I know that's the hard thing at 14. It's a very young age, a very transitional age for you to be dealing with things that are kind of humiliating and embarrassing.
Yeah.
But like you said, it could help you to reflect back on that when you're in, your adult life like you are now. I mean, I agree. The things that we go through, sometimes the things we go through as children, even though they are humiliating, they do allow us and prepare us to get ready for what's real life in the world when we become older. So I kind of like what you had to say there. Huh?
Yeah, you bet. That's so true. It's part of your formation, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks, TJ, for sharing that with us here this morning. Appreciate that, and hope that things are going very well for you today there in Fort Dodge. And call the program anytime. We will have that line open there at 1-800-585-9396, talking about being fired or having to fire somebody. When we all, work is part of human life. It's part of human dignity. And sometimes our dignity takes a little ding because we are let go from a job, or we have to do that to somebody. So what's been your experience? Please feel free to share that with us as we go to Becky next in Rochester, New York, listening to EWTN Radio on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Becky. What's your take on this?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. You guys are great. I love listening to you guys.
Oh, bless you.
So 7 years ago, I became engaged to a longtime friend. It was a long history, and after 12 years of knowing him, we finally got engaged. I was a teacher at a Christian school here in Rochester, and I went and told my colleagues. They were excited for me. They said, "Where are you getting married?" I said, "Well, he's Catholic, so we're getting married at this most beautiful church, St. Michael's in the city." "Well, isn't that a Catholic church?" "Yes." Well, then I was called into the principal's office. I was asked if I was getting married in the Catholic church. I said yes. "Well, you're not Catholic." "I know that." "You're Methodist." "Yes." "Well, then why are you getting married to this Catholic person?" "Well, because I love him, and I respect him, and whatever." And I had, a long time ago, I had a call to become Catholic, but I didn't really feel like I was ready to step into the church yet. There's lots of other things going on with my family and whatnot. So I was just waiting for the right time, and then after this meeting with the principal, he became very upset and told me that the Catholic Church did not believe in the Bible, and he knew that because he was Catholic growing up, and he was an altar server, so he knew everything. And I was just so taken back, and this was towards the springtime, so it was getting towards the end of the school year, and I back and forth with the pastor of the church, with the principal. My fiance came in and met with the principal, and they got into a very heated argument, and push came to shove, and basically they told me that if I was to return to school, that I was not allowed to get married in the Catholic Church. And I was just so upset, and it was just a very difficult time, and I said, they actually told me that I had to quit, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to quit. You have to fire me." And they said, "No, we're not." I just kept going back and forth, and so we basically left it as if I was getting married in this church, I had to leave. So, over the summer, I actually went back, and after some time had passed and got all of my things out of my classroom, it was very emotional, very sad, because I had the privilege of teaching kids K1, 2, 3 in a row. So I had some of the same kids for 4 years, same families, and it was just such a blessing to me. And then to be told that I can't work there anymore. Well, that was 7 years ago, and we got married that fall, and because it was God's timing, I was able to come into the church 6 days before we got married. And now we're married. We've been married for 6.5 years, and we have 3 beautiful boys.
Oh, Becky, what a story. Becky, I have a couple of questions. First of all, welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank you.
And also, you experienced the first round of persecution being a Catholic, and so I think you handled it really beautifully. And you stayed steadfast, and I think that's wonderful. Unfortunately, I feel sorry for that school that you worked for, because to me, that is very short-sighted in what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe if you became a Catholic, were you going to convince other Christian children to become Catholic? I don't know. I don't know what their thoughts were. But I'm just curious. Did you sign something when you became a teacher at this school that you could not be a Catholic?
The document that I signed, the contract, was very specific about how. And I at the time I was United Methodist, and I brought it to my pastor, who was a woman at the time, and she kind of looked it over for me and said, "No, I think we believe what these beliefs set, are the same sort of beliefs, go ahead and feel like you can sign it, freely. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and I told them, and they said I needed a recommendation from my pastor, to kind of make things official. And I said, well, she will get it for me. And they said, "Oh, your pastor's a woman." When they were very taken back by that, and they they squeezed me in there, mm-hmm. and because they really liked me and they wanted me to teach there, but they said, "Don't mention that to your students or your families because we don't believe in that."
Okay, so they had a very rigid set of views, of their own Christian views. Okay,
yeah.
So here's the thing that's really great, though, Becky. We in the Catholic Church, we welcome non-Christians. In Catholic radio, there's a lot of non-Christians that work in Catholic radio. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of non-Catholics that send their kids to Catholic school. Jerry and I were just at St. Bernard's Prep Academy in prep school in Coleman, Alabama. And Jerry, what's it? A good percentage are non-Catholics.
Yeah, 30-40%, something like that.
Right. So that's the beauty of it. And I believe that this circumstance that happened to you, Becky, was providential because it really set the stage for you to be a strong Catholic.
Yes. And my husband now, we are blessed to have, he is a full-time teacher at Chesterton Academy of Rochester, and he teaches music and religion and history, and it's just been a huge blessing in our lives. And it's my life. I love being Catholic, and I just love it. And there's a lot of my friends. I go to a Bible study that's a mom's group, and they embrace me as a Catholic. They know I'm a Christian. They don't question my faith at all, and it's I can teach them about the Catholic Church, and it's they're open to just knowing that we're all God's children, and that's how right. Christians should look at everyone. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were just so anti-Catholic, and it broke my heart at the time, but now, looking back, and I think you asked me something about, how the principal handled something, but he actually told me to my face that he was unsure if I would be able to invite the families that I was so close with to my wedding. And little did he know that I had asked, because I don't have any nieces or anything, and so I needed some flower girls, and I wanted to ask those little girls that I've been so close with. I asked their parents first. They were totally okay with it, and I told him that, and he was visibly angry at me for doing that. But, and I'm still in touch with those families today, and they're so happy that I'm happy, and, but like you said, I pray for those people because, they're one-sided, and like I said, he knew that the Catholic Church didn't believe in the Bible because he went to Catholic school himself. I'm like, what? That's not true, and so I don't know if something bad happened to him in the church, or I don't know, but I try to pray for those people because that's what you need to do.
Yeah, and Becky, we were talking at the start of the show, and you are an example of this, that sometimes God will sort of dislodge us from a particular position or a situation to move us to where he wants us to be. And that was exactly, it sounds like what happened with you. God wanted you in a better place, and that's not a judgment of the people at that school. I believe, and I'm sure you do, that they are very, very sincere in their beliefs, and I applaud them for their very, very strong convictions. This gentleman who was raised a Catholic obviously got misformed somewhere along the way, misinformed or misformed about the Catholic faith. But it's a beautiful, beautiful story, the way it has turned out for you and your husband and your beautiful little children. So thank you so much for sharing that with us here today. Debbie, very, very inspiring. This is exactly what we were talking about at the start of the show, how we can turn something like being let go from a job into something very beautiful.
That's exactly right. We learn from it. We grow from it. That, as Catholic Christians, we are meant to grow. We're meant to move forward, have forward thinking. We're not supposed to be stuck. We're supposed to be formed in our faith and continually seek out God in all things. And Becky, great example. I mean, your life, that's a story. You should almost create a movie on that. I think so, Jerry. That would be a great screenplay. Wouldn't it be?
It would.
It truly would. Oh, there's that music. Love that
Thanks,
music.
Becky, for joining us.
Yes.
We get a lot more calls. We're going to go to Robert next, and we've got Matt, Mike, and Kim. And we hope to have you join us here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. What's been your experience of firing someone or being fired? What did you learn? What did they learn? How did you move forward and grow closer to God? 800-585-9396 is our number.
What is the evidence for the existence of God? How can faith and science coexist? How can something come from nothing? Cosmic questions that still elude the mind of man. Philosopher and theologian Father Robert Spitzer ignites an infinite discourse. At the intersection of faith and reason, we invite you to explore Father Spitzer's universe.
Friday, 8 p.m. and Sunday, noon Eastern on EWTN Radio.
The Holy Father's prayer intention for the month of February is that all those who are afflicted, especially the poor, refugees, and marginalized, may find welcome and comfort in our communities.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I never cease to wonder at is that this Jesus, Son of God, came born in a stable, escapes from a king. When his whole life he's kind of hunted down by the jealousy and the ambition of the scribes and Pharisees and the king. And he speaks and heals to the people. He raises the dead and exorcises demons. Nobody's grateful. He does all that. He continues to do all of that. And we still don't understand how much he loves us. Isn't that odd?
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
This is Janet Benkovic, host of Women of Grace.
Hello, this is Cardinal Donald Wuerl of the Archdiocese of Washington.
This is Gloria Purvis, host of Morning Glory. Thanks for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Okay, as promised, we're going right back to the phones. Robert, you've been waiting so patiently listening to EWTN Radio in El Paso, Texas. Hi, Robert. Welcome to Take Two.
Yes, good morning. How are you? Okay?
Doing well. How are
you,
Doing
well,
Robert?
Thanks.
I'm good. I just wanted to share that I worked for this company for 24 and a half years. And one day they called me into the office and told me that as of noon that day, I would no longer be with the company. The difficult part was not only was I losing my job, but I also had a company car. And they told me to turn in the keys. And I knew I was going to be losing my health insurance. At that point, I was 55 years old. And it was a hard industry because it was something that was not very common. And they had somebody from the office give me a ride home. And I told him to stop at this church. And I went in there. I'm a very devout Catholic. I went in there and I knelt before the Blessed Sacrament. And I cried.
Yes.
But
ahead,
I knew that everything was going to be fine because the Lord has guided me all my life, and being 55 years old in a difficult industry was very difficult. So I looked up and I said, I know everything is going to be okay. Mm-hmm. So for 5 months, I looked everywhere for a job. I was willing to take anything, and I was even willing to take a lot less than what I was making, but they wouldn't hire me. And I kept going to that little chapel, and I knew everything was going to be okay. So 5 months later, after they let me go, because of a recommendation of a friend, I was hired with a company in Phoenix, but I was going to work here in El Paso. And it turned out to be a better company, better employers, a very Catholic-owned company, and they treated me like family.
Beautiful.
Well, Robert, you had that trust along the way, and that is itself a great gift. And you've alluded to a couple things that we hadn't really mentioned before, and that is the benefits that we have on a job, especially Debbie in particular, health insurance. That's so very, very important. And when benefits such as that are lost, that can really
car.
in the car, it can really exacerbate a situation. But Robert, you had just that childlike trust, and even though it was 5 months, did that trust remain strong like that whole time?
Yes, because I grew up in a family of 4 brothers and sisters, and we lived in a very poor neighborhood, and my father, he worked in construction, and he put us all through Catholic school. And I remember one time the nun who was a principal at our Catholic school, my father walked in, he was full of cement, all sunburned, and she said, "You know what, Mr. Your children are very good children. It's okay if you put them in public school." And he said, "No." So the seed was planted at a young age, the seed of forgiveness and the seed of trust. And today I have no time and no room for anger or animosity. And that's the best gift a person can have, because that is awful. I have a lot of compassion and a lot of forgiveness in me, and that comes from my parents. So beautiful. I wanted to share that with the audience, that no matter how difficult, don't ever stop trusting the Lord, because He will help you. Just be patient. Be patient.
Right, because it's in God's time. Yeah, it's in God's time. Robert, we want to honor your parents as well. We'd love to enter them into our book because we pray for the living and the deceased. Can you give us your parents' first names?
My father's name is Luis, Luis. And my beautiful mother's name was Angela.
Oh, Angela. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Robert, I want to just say a couple things, because first of all, as you were speaking, that's why Jerry spoke, because I'm just welling up in tears. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but the way you reacted, or I should say the way you responded by having that shock hit you of getting let go and then having things stripped away from you, for you to ask to be stopped off at a church, I think is really beautiful. And I think that your parents did a great job, but I think that what's in your soul is equally as great. And I can only imagine that man that drove you, or the person that drove you, must have been shocked that you would even take that time to go to church when you've been, and what you did for that person. To be that witness, of that Christian witness of how you went right to your faith. You're an inspiration to all of us today, Robert. All of us. And I just wanted to say, you're a hero of mine.
The person that drove me was not Catholic, and I would run into him periodically, and he said, "Robert, I've gone to that little church that I took you to." And I said, "Well, don't stop going, and the Lord will call you." And I haven't seen him in a while, and I don't know what happened, but I hope that he has peace in his heart. That's all that's important.
Right.
But the biggest message today is that there's no room in a person for hatred or animosity or revenge. What for? I mean, enjoy the moment, find peace. And that, to me, is the biggest message I can give, not only my children, but to whoever is listening. Animosity and hatred, it's a bad thing to have, no matter what happens.
Well, there's
I want to
nothing.
thank you for your program. I always watch EWTN, and I record it, especially Journey Home. And I have a gift that I want to send to EWTN, and I want to thank you, and God bless both of you.
Well, God bless you, Robert. Thank you. As Debbie said, I echo what she said. You really inspired all of us today, and all of those who were listening. Thank you. And the seed you planted in the heart of that gentleman who took you to the church, again, that was, who knows where he is right now, but he's probably in a much better place than he was then. So thank you, Robert, so much for joining us. We appreciate that. And Mike, thank you for holding patiently in, is it Pearland, Texas? Mike, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Hi, Mike. Welcome.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, Mike. Thanks for your patience. Is that pronounced Pearland? Is that how you say that?
Yes, Pearland, Texas. Mike.
Pearland, Texas. Okay.
Yeah, what a pleasure. I'm enjoying your show.
Thank you.
Anyway,
fire away.
I graduated University of Connecticut engineering. I worked in Groton, Connecticut, electric boat, and after 8 years as an engineer, I got laid off in first wave of 1,000 people. You know, you're kind of shocked. You don't know what to do. You maybe have a tear in your eye. But God always has a better plan. His tapestry, the way He weaves everything together. And you know, I never had kids of my own, but getting laid off in 1994 in Groton, Connecticut, then I moved to Florida, and then before I moved to Florida, Dr. Fenn, my friend, said, "Hey, no big deal. You got laid off. You got an engineering degree. We'll let your student teach at my school. We'll get you your master's degree, and you can teach and be with kids." And so that turned into teaching in New York, teaching in Connecticut, and moving to Florida. And in Florida, I taught for almost 8 years and ran homework and hoops. And I had, over 2,500 kids over 8 years of teaching with basketball after school. And then that led to building houses in Florida. And I had my mom and dad, who were in their 70s at the time, and my handicapped brother come live with me by the ocean in Ormond Beach, Florida, near Daytona. And I met a friend there, and then when things went down and things went bad with the housing market, I had to move back home to Connecticut. But a buddy of mine who I helped in Florida, he opened up some gold and diamond shops in Pearland, Texas, and he trusted me, and he knew me from building houses. Him and his wife called me and said, "Hey, can you come down to Pearland? We'll open up another store, and you can manage it." And that led me to finding the best church I've ever found, and I take notes every Sunday and, transcribe Mass, and then I draw pictures. And they encouraged me so much there at this beautiful church in Pearland, Texas, that they said, "Hey, your drawings and your notes are so good. Do you ever think about painting?" I started painting my drawings. I Googled how to transfer my drawings, blow them up, blow them down, and then use carbon paper, transfer to... And now I sent a painting to Mother Angelica in the hospital, a painting to Father John Ricardo. I just sent a painting to Pope Francis at the Vatican. And I got a letter back saying he got it. So,
wow, that's great.
all that, when I thought it was a bad thing to get laid off, God always has a great plan, and I wouldn't change it for anything. So it just makes me want to pay attention more to the Holy Spirit and try to be a better person as far as listening and praying and going where God wants me instead of my ideas are never going to be like God. So we'll see what happens,
Wow. Mike, that is amazing stuff. Debbie and I are just sitting here kind of nodding and smiling. And yeah, you mentioned kind of the key thing right there at the end is we want to go where God wants us to go. And sometimes, we have to put our hands on the steering wheel. It's like the image of the Scott Hahn once gave this image that it's always stuck with me. The little child that's out helping his father mow the grass. The child is holding on to the handle of the lawnmower, but the dad's doing all the work, and we want to do that too in our lives. And Debbie, it sounds like Mike had a great attitude when he got laid off from that first job, and then look at all the things that God has done in and through him since then.
Yeah. And I thought what you said was so beautiful, where you said, I want to pay attention. I want to look for those things. I want to be aware. That is so true. We should all have that thirst and that hunger to say, "Lord, where are you taking me next? What are you doing next for me? What can I do for you? Use my gifts in the glory of God," just like you're doing, Mike. And I have to tell you, Mike, I'm not trying to be selfish at all, but don't worry. Jerry and I don't want to see any of your paintings. By the way, our email is take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. Take2. at EWTN.com. Mike, you're gifted, and it's wonderful just to hear your story. You give life to this beautiful conversation, and I know that there are many that are listening right now that they're going to walk away from this show going, wow, I can do it. Mike did it, and look how it turned out. It's been a blessing. Just like in your life, Mike, and in Robert's life, it's amazing. And Becky's life, look at Becky. She has a beautiful family now, and she's in the church. I mean, wow, God has a plan for all of us, and it's exciting if we embrace it that way, Mike. Way to go. You're awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for sharing all that with us today. We appreciate that. And I just want to say to anyone who's listening right now, whether you're working or not, in between jobs, whatever the case may be, whatever your circumstances are, you can help a show like Take Two or any other EWTN radio program or television show or the National Catholic Register or EWTN Religious Catalog or publishing, you name it, by becoming a media missionary. What that is you can be a representative of EWTN right in your local community. So go to EWTNmissionaries.com today and join us in sharing the eternal word with the world. You can help get announcements made in parishes in your area, in community, maybe newspapers and things like that. So help spread the word about the good work that EWTN is doing. And we're going to go next to Kim in Springfield, Missouri, listening to EWTN Radio on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Kim. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Sure.
I wanted to. I've had a kind of an interesting road, taken and been in different jobs. And the one I'm currently in now, I am a supervisor, and I work for an agency that's in public service. And so we have good morals and ethics that we follow, not Catholic or anything like that, but just a good, solid, respect people and treat people well and that kind of thing, and we serve the public. But my road started with pretty rocky, and I thought I knew what I wanted, and I was trying to force my way into what I wanted to do in my life, and ended up losing a job, not having a job for several months, applying for multiple jobs, and then getting this job offer out of nowhere that wasn't even anything I knew existed. And I knew instantly when I got that God's hand was in that. And so I was excited, and I knew going to that interview that somehow I was going to get that job. So I got that job, and I was just a regular worker, and I loved it. That's all I want to do. I just want to be a regular worker. The stress and all of that is not there. I'm just free to enjoy the outdoors and do these things. And I was only allowed to have that job for 6 months before they promoted me. And I didn't necessarily want a promotion, but they wanted me to be a supervisor. Okay, I can handle that. So I became a supervisor, but then I was only able to be a supervisor in that capacity for 2 years, and they wanted to promote me again to a different level. Well, I struggled with that, and I prayed, and I knew that God wanted me to be in this next level because I felt that's how I could be useful. And I always pray that prayer. Place me where I am most useful and where your will is going to be done for my purpose in life, because I wasn't really sure what my purpose was other than just continue to do good. But I was kind of centered on myself a little bit more. So I take this job. I've been in this job now for 12 years, and I have realized the weight of the responsibility that I have in directing and supervising staff. And I have had to terminate employees that would refuse to perform, and I would take every possible step that I could. And I pray every time that I go to encounter a particular employee. And if I have to I travel to a lot of different towns because the places where my supervisors are in different places. So I travel to them, and I have to manage from a distance, and I have to go and visit, and I would be in such a state of, what do I do? How do I help this person? Because that's how I look at, how do I help this person perform and be respectful and do what they need to do? Because it's almost always not that they can't do their job. Technically, it's that their attitude is not in line with respect of other people and of the public and that kind of thing. And so I would find the Catholic church in that particular town that I was in, and I would go sit before the tabernacle and pray that when I encounter this employee, that I say what needs to be said, that I guide them the way it needs to be that they need to be guided in everything that I can do. Give me that Holy Spirit in my words and my actions. And sometimes I'm able to save people and move them in the right direction, and then other times I have to go through with determination. And it is one of the most painful things for me to see that everything that I've done didn't work, and I know that I prayed through the whole thing, but, that person has to join in the progress of them moving forward. And so as the longer I have this job, the greater I feel that way, the responsibility, and I ask Christ at every step, how do I help this particular individual? And so that's, I don't know how other supervisors deal with that in their faith, but I can't imagine getting through a day or answer an email or take a phone call or converse with staff that does not include a prayer to the Holy Spirit when I pick up that phone.
Wow. Kim, I don't know how other people are handle situations like that either. I suspect if there are others among our listeners who are in supervisory positions, they very, very likely handle it in a way maybe similar to what you're talking about. But you're describing yourself here, Kim. Debbie, what I'm hearing is almost like a shepherd of souls here. You are looking at the person, their dignity and their soul, and what is going to be best for them, and how can I lift them up at the same time of doing what may be corrective action that's needed in their life, for example. So, Debbie, I think this is just a beautiful, beautiful approach by Kim.
Yeah, absolutely. You're really walking the walk and talking the talk as a Christian, Kim, and you're viewing this as a ministry to souls. I totally agree with what Jerry has responded to your story, and I think it's beautiful. The other thing too is enjoy the blessings. I don't know if you are, because it seems like you're very much of a giver. But enjoy I could tell by the way you were talking. So also enjoy the blessings that are going to come back to you, because God wants to give you blessings back. So be open to those, if you would.
Sure. And I pray for those that I've had to terminate too, because I do think of them. Where are they now? How did they recover? Did any good come from that?
It's beautiful. Beautiful. You're caring for souls, and that's what God asks us all to do, and so you're living it. And way to go, Kim. Thank you. Thank you for your call today. It really helped us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kim. And we had a gentleman by the name of Larry who just called in, and Larry could not hold, but he asked that we pray for his sister-in-law, Diane, who was recently put into hospice care. So, Larry, be assured we are going to all lift up Diane and you and your entire family. That strikes very close to home for me. As all of you know, my sister Mary passed away on Tuesday after being in hospice for a few weeks. I'm at her home right now still, and in fact today we're going to the mortuary and the cemetery to make those plans. So Larry, we will lift up your sister-in-law Diane. May she have peace and the angels surrounding her, and may God perfect in her what He wishes to accomplish at this time. So.
Yes, absolutely. So she's in the book. Diane is in our prayer book. Samantha, you're up next, listening in North Dakota on Real Presence Radio. We have about 5 minutes till the close of the show, but we wanted to get you in, Samantha.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so my story is, I'm kind of nervous. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Don't be nervous. We're very friendly.
So about 3 years ago, I got the job as a DRE at a local Catholic parish. It wasn't the one that we were going to at the time, so we kind of switched over. And immediately myself and the manager of the office just didn't really get along very well, and he would kind of push back on all the ideas that I had, and I was pretty unhappy there. And then I got pregnant, and I was very, very ill in my pregnancy, and so I started missing work, probably more than, they really wanted me to. And one day I went to morning mass, and I came downstairs to my office, and he was there, and he just said that I was fired and I had to leave, and that was that. And just the way that it happened, I was unhappy there because I wasn't able to put anything into place that I really wanted for the program. But just the way it was done was just so, I felt it was hard. And the priest was out of town at the time even, so it kind of felt like sneaky, you know, like he didn't like me, and so he was just gonna kind of get rid of me as
so it didn't feel right.
As he could. Yeah, it felt very
right.
wrong, and so and it, you know, and usually I talked to the priest later on when he was back in town, and they were nice enough, or he was nice enough to offer me some severance pay, so because you know we had two young children at the time, and we had to finish out so many weeks of daycare. You can't just pull them out of daycare and stuff, and so. Right. We didn't even have the money to pay the rest of daycare off, and so the priest was nice enough to do that. But
well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, Samantha, can I just say something? Go ahead. Well, I just want to say real quickly, because I don't want this to go without saying, I'm sorry that happened to you. I have to tell you, I've worked in 5 parishes, and unfortunately, the parish staffs are made up of human beings with flaws. Even though it's a Catholic parish, and even though it's supposed to feel like it's all heaven and roses all the time, it's filled with human beings and who we don't get along. There's things that happen. There's differences. And so you're not alone in that happens. What I'm hoping, though, is that you didn't walk away with a sour taste in your mouth about working in parishes. Because I will tell you that there are some parishes that function beautifully. There are some that are a little more difficult. It's just the way it is because humans are making it up. So I pray that you didn't walk away with a sour taste. I hope you didn't. Did you?
No, I actually went on to work at another parish that worked much better for me. But I really was touched by Robert's call because of like how much forgiveness and stuff he had. Because honestly, after I left that parish, it took me probably 2 years to really forgive that man and put him in my prayers.
Right.
And I didn't even walk back into that parish for probably 2.5 years because I was so upset about it.
You were hurt. You were hurt.
Yeah.
You were hurt. Absolutely. And you should be hurt by it. But look at you, 2 years, but you got over that, and now it seems like you've reconciled. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Samantha, for sharing that with us here today. Mike in San Antonio, I wish we were going to have time for you, but Mike's comment here says, life turned out great after I was let go from a job. So, Mike, that's great news. You're going to hear that music here to end the program any second now. In fact, there it is. Mike, wish we had time to get you on. Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah. Can Mike email us? Have Mike email us at take2@EWTN.com. Take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. Mike, I'd love to hear how life turned out so great for you after you were let go. It sounds like a fascinating story. Tomorrow, we're talking about photographs and other memories. How do you store them? Oh, that's going to be an interesting conversation we're going to have on Take 2. Dear listeners, you did it again. You made this show absolutely superb. We couldn't do it without you because you drive the show. Jerry and I want to wish you a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.